Oh, how good it is to be worshiping with you all today here at University Baptist Church, represented both in person and online. I wish I could be with you all in person, but I believe that our futures will be open for some type of collaboration. So, from my lips to the Divine One's abilities to receive our prayers and transform them, I believe that a change's gonna come. So speaking of changes, I recognize that today is Transfiguration Sunday. From being raised in a church that is more charismatic to serving multiple churches that are lectionary bound, Transfiguration has meant a plethora of things. See, as I've studied more, I've learned its importance in the ministry of Jesus and its messianic affirmation that begins to not only foreshadow an understanding that he ain't gonna make it out alive, but that his role in confronting the Roman Empire will cost him and his people gravely. But negating the doom and gloom of the future, the disciples are struck with the awe as they see Jesus descend from a mountain. He is cloaked in a shade of dazzling white, and such a shade cannot be found at your local Sherwin-Williams paint store. This shade inspires the disciples to make 3 dwellings, one place for Jesus, one for Moses, and the other one for Elijah. And I could go further into this surreal moment of smoke and lights, but what I want to focus on during this Black History Month is the pervading positivity of whiteness found within our sacred book and the damning of darkness, a darkness which is so beautifully found in blackness, created from a domineering Eurocentric interpretation. So let's journey back not only into our sacred canon of the Hebrew poetry, but also into the United States past, and place the Song of Solomon in conversation with baby dolls. And so in the Song of Solomon, we're met with the sultry tale of young love for 2 impassioned people. The text provides an ample amount of compliments and longing bliss that would make any of the romance novels on the shelves at Target or Walmart blush and clutch their pearls. However, if you happen to have the King James Version, this is a verse in there that doesn't translate well. And when I say it doesn't translate well, this is what I mean. So starting at verse 1, the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for thy love is better than the wine. Because of the savor of thy good ointment, thy name is as ointment poured forth. Therefore do virgins love thee. Draw me, we will run after thee. The king hath brought me into his chambers. We will be glad and rejoice in thee. We will remember thy love more than wine. The upright love thee. I am black but comely, O daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me because I am black, but because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me, and they made me the keeper of the vineyards. But my own vineyard have I not kept. So if you're asking what comely means, let me be Merriam-Webster and tell you that it means pleasant to look at or simply attractive. And in this context, it reads as, even though my melanin in my skin is black, I am still beautiful regardless. Excuse me, what? Who's reading this? And in Black History Month? Oh, absolutely not. See, but I'm thankful for the updated translations that read, I am black and beautiful. Somebody say, conjunction junction, what's your function? See, yet, even in this translation, I found this in many churches that I worship with and many homes of relatives that I love dearly. Could you imagine being hyped up and given a shower of praise only to have it be ruined by 4 words? As in, you're pretty cute for a black girl. As if the beauty and opulence is not inherently found in melanated skin kissed by the sun. No. Let me take a moment to read a translation for filth that was dedicated to a white king, King James, and comprised of white men deemed scholarly. Well, compromise is correct. No shade to them, but all of the shade. Given the time period of 1611 where England was no stranger to stealing African persons from the continent and enslaving them, this would not have been out of the knowledge of the translators. See, these translators had no trouble harming the sanctity of blackness and inspired other translators in a similar fashion, allowing them to justify the enslavement of black persons through misrepresentations, misinterpretations, like the curse of Ham and the darkening of his skin as punishment. I'll say it again. There's a phrase that just sticks with me, and it is, every translation is an interpretation. One more time. Every translation is an interpretation. This comes from Hebrew Bible 101 with the Reverend Dr. Will Gaffney. What we read, what we consume, and what words we say and publish matter. It becomes even more problematic when an interpretation becomes an unchallenged truth about a specific group of people. Black people are not a monolith. No person is a monolith. The truth of the matter is that over and over again, the imagery around whiteness found within our sacred text has been hijacked to support a white is right campaign that places darkness as a place of banishment, torment, or sin. Let's talk about it for a minute and not shy away from the word associations that found some of our implicit biases. See, we've already mentioned the dazzling white compared to being beautiful despite being black. See, John chapter 1 verses 4 through 5 speaks of light overcoming darkness and darkness not standing a chance. Continuing in John chapter 3, darkness is described as a place of evil actions, and those that participate in it refuse to be changed by the light. Our text is littered with comparisons of this caliber, but I'm going to stop there and just possibly challenge thoughts already. How can darkness be labeled as bad if our ancient ancestors of the faith were black and brown, sun-kissed authors writing to a similar audience? Our understanding and biases with these words holds a different weight that's much different than our ancient ancestors and how they would have used it or meant it. See, we know that racism or the concept of racism was not in our sacred canon, but there are things like the enslavement of persons that are found in many different passages. Examples of misogyny, patriarchy, and other oppressive forces are found within our text, and we are taught to look out for these things. If we remember that every translation is an interpretation, we should shift our mindset to adopt a hermeneutic of suspicion, a lens that asks us who instigated violence for the sake of racial supremacy in the name of the Holy One. Whose MO seeks to cast down and remain on top? What is at stake when one story remains to speak for the Divine One? This is what was and still is at stake when we fail to ask who's telling the story. Through the groundbreaking work of Dr. Mamie and Kenneth Clark in the 1940s, through their baby doll test, helped to solidify a victory in the Brown versus Board education by highlighting the negative effects of segregation on Black children and its effect on their physical and mental health and their self-esteem. In the experiment, which was done with all Black children, the children were given two dolls, one black and the other white. They were asked a series of questions, including selecting their doll of preference and pointing to the doll that looks most like them. Many of the children picked a white doll as their preference, and some began to cry when they were asked which doll looked most like them. At the cost of winning this landmark case, we learned that our Black children, both past and present, are suffering from internalized racism that makes them question their worth and beauty. From their own learning environment, they were taught to strive for a shade that is not even possible to them. And that's the point. So much of the point that you had activists and artists declaring the sanctity and richness of Blackness to counteract this internal violence. See, musician activists like Nina Simone, who dared to challenge the standard of splendor and said, to be young, gifted, and Black, that's where it's at. See, she spoke of wisdom of the ancestors that reminded Black people that we are somebody and that our stories deserve to be told. They should not strike embarrassment in us, but inspire us to persevere in spite of. Oh, how we should want to learn this truth as a community. Miss Simone taught us that there are joys flowing from the brilliance of those we call young, gifted, and Black. In the spirit of Miss Simone, I'm here to name those joys welling up from those blessed holy bodies of melanin. So what does it mean to be young, gifted, and Black? Pay close attention. Because in the beginning, I'm speaking to my Black and brown siblings of God, and then to the whole church as a community that is witness to these affirmations. So to be young, gifted, and Black means letting your story be known, and that's every story. Like Black and disabled stories, Black and queer, Black and neurodiverse, Black and academic, Black and a skill, knowledge, regardless, all Black lives matter. And church, you get to be the listener and support in what ways you are asked. Oh, how I love to learn the truths found in these lives. To be young, gifted, and Black means living into your best, most authentic self, striving for that you desire to be. And church, you are being the voice of affirmation, confirmation, and celebration to the gifts of God from the melanated children of God. Thanks be to God. To be young, gifted, and Black means that your soul, the whole soul, and vessel used to carry it are wonderfully, wholly, and fully complete. And church, you seek to protect that soul with the love and grace that we are all so freely given. On this day of transfiguration, found in the month that we also call Black History Month, I call you to action, encourage you to engage your hermeneutic of suspicion with your own life, especially the language you use and the content you consume. I do not come here to be an authority on words and who gets to say what, but I come to you as a body that has been the subject of negativity for not being close enough to whiteness in thought, word, and deed. I come to name what may or may not be discussed and is worth sitting with. When we learn to interrogate our language for good, we stop asking, why can't I use this word? And start asking who may be affected by the use of this word. When our vocabularies grow, more stories can show. Stories of God's beloveds who are young, gifted, and Black can be uplifted without question to their authenticity, centered with attention and love, and be recognized as sacred because the Holy One has already declared it and used Nina Simone to articulate it. To be young, gifted, and Black is beautiful and fact. To protect our young, gifted, and Black siblings, now that's where it's at. Ashe and Amen, church.